Workflows are the engine inside of HubSpot that powers the automation. They help us free up our time and scale up our efforts, but they can be pretty intimidating when you're first getting started out. So today, we're going to give you an overview of what's possible with workflows and walk you through creating a simple example that nurtures contacts.
Welcome to HubSpot Hacks, where we help you get more out of HubSpot.
The Workflows tool is available to you if you have any HubSpot hub at the professional or enterprise level. But some of the features that you can do with Workflows is going to vary depending on the level and hub that you do have. So I'll be sure to point that out as we go. But without further ado, let's dive in. So we're in here with our Workflows tool now, and you can get here by going to Automation and Workflows. And we are going to create a new workflow by clicking on this Create Workflow button in the top right corner. So when you click on this, you have the option to go from scratch or template. There are quite a few templates available to you that may help you get started, but today we're going to do a workflow from scratch. So the first thing that you'll notice is that you'll choose the type of workflow you want to create. So there's quite a few options on the left-hand side here. And these options are going to be based on the object that triggers the workflow. So for example, a contact-based workflow is going to give you workflows that will start when something happens with that contact record. So a contact property changes or a contact fills out a form. And that's going to be the same kind of as you go through. So contact-based workflows, company-based workflows, deal-based workflows, those are available no matter what HubSpot hub you have, as long as you have a professional level or higher. The ticket-based workflows are only going to be available if you have Service Hub Pro or Enterprise. Quote-based is only available if you have Sales Hub Pro or Enterprise. Conversations available to everybody with Pro. Feedback is also going to be Service Pro or Enterprise. And subscription and payment-based are also available if you have any Pro level subscription. If you do have an enterprise level subscription and have custom objects that you're working with, you can have custom object-based workflows, and those become available at the enterprise level. And then there's a few betas that will become available. As you see, there's a goal-based beta that we're working on now. Since that's still in beta, we'll skip over that today. So we're just going to go into contact-based workflow. And once you select the object type, you will select your option for how you want the workflow to start. So a blank workflow is going to be the most common. This is just a standard workflow based on the triggers that you set. You can also schedule a workflow if you have Operations Hub Pro or Enterprise. So you do have to have Operations Hub, but this would be for a recurring workflow that might happen daily, weekly, monthly, etc. You can do that if you have Operations Hub. And then if it's a contact-based workflow, you'll also get these two additional options. So a specific date will say, trigger this workflow on the first of every year, for example. Contact date property is going to be trigger this workflow based on a date stored in the contact property. So the most common example here is maybe you want to send an email out on a contact's birthday. You have that date stored in a birthday property for that contact, and you can have the workflow trigger on that date. But today we're just going to do a simple blank workflow and hit next here. And this is going to be the screen where you're going to build the workflow. So the first thing I recommend doing is giving your workflow a name by clicking up here. We'll just call this test workflow for now. And it's always a good idea to give it a description as well, especially if you have multiple people on your team managing your workflows. That way, if somebody else comes in here, they can kind of know what this workflow is about. So we'll save that. And this main screen here is where you're actually going to build out your workflow. So typically the first thing you're going to do is set up the triggers. This is the thing that actually starts the workflow. There may be some workflows that you only want to enroll contacts in manually. In that case, you would leave the trigger out of it, and it would still let you enroll contacts manually or other objects if it's another object type workflow. But usually there's going to be a trigger for the workflow. So you'll hit setup triggers, and you'll notice you've got quite a few options here. So we won't go through all of them, but I encourage you to, as you're kind of first building out your workflows, to experiment and play with them here. Today, we're going to build out a workflow that nurtures contacts after they fill out a form. So that's going to be a pretty common workflow if you're using HubSpot for marketing purposes. So we're going to use this form submissions trigger. You can see we can do things like when the contact enrolled in the workflow has a property updated, or an associated company to that contact has a property updated, etc. But today we're going to do the form submissions trigger. And we want it to be any form submission on our landing page for an ebook we have. So we've got this Biglytics market analysis ebook landing page. Anytime they fill out a form on that landing page, we want it to trigger this workflow. Depending on the type of trigger, you may have the ability to refine the filter a bit. So we can refine it by dates or how many times they filled it out. For us, we just want it to run anytime they fill out a form on that landing page. So we'll leave all of these off and hit apply filter. You can see you can apply multiple filters here. So maybe we want it to trigger only if their life cycle stage is set to lead, for example. We could add other triggers, essentially filters for your workflows that refines who can actually be enrolled in this workflow. The one tab on this enrollment triggers screen here that you'll want to make sure you always look at is this re-enrollment tab. It's often overlooked, but it becomes really important. So for example, do you want this to happen every time a contact fills out a form? So if a contact fills out a form on this landing page today, does it again a week from now? Do you want them to be re-enrolled or not? Usually, so by default, the re-enrollment is going to be turned off. Oftentimes, you'll want to override that and make it so that every time this happens, they're enrolled in the workflow. And so to do that, you'll click on this re-enrollment tab, and you'll check that box to allow contacts who meet the trigger to be re-enrolled. And then you can do it so only when they're manually re-enrolled or if they meet that trigger condition as well. Not every trigger condition is going to be available for re-enrollment, so there may be some where you don't see this option. We're going to leave it off for this workflow because we don't want somebody to get the same nurturing emails twice. But there are many instances where you may want to turn that on. So we will save this trigger here, and you'll see this box update to show that trigger. So the next thing you're going to do is add actions. So to add an action, you're just going to hit this plus mark here. And again, you're going to see quite a few options for your actions. These ones I will walk through with you. So the first kind of set of actions you have is to delay the next step. So this is going to be available to anybody that has the workflows tool. You're going to be able to see all of these delay options. So you can delay it for a certain amount of time. For example, I don't want the first email to go out until a couple days later. I could delay that. I can delay it until a certain date or a certain day or time. So for example, if I only want the next thing to happen after 5 p.m. or I only want it to happen on Tuesdays, that's when I would use this. A specific calendar date, or until an event happens. For example, I only want the next thing to happen after they've visited my web page. So it's kind of like a little mini trigger in the workflow. So those are our delay steps. We also have our workflow steps, so you can enroll them in another workflow. That's available to anybody with a pro level subscription or higher. And then these three are going to be a little bit more advanced, and they're only going to be available if you have Operations Hub Pro or Enterprise. So you can send a webhook. Custom code is great. It basically makes your workflows limitless. You can do things like call the HubSpot API, all kinds of custom code you can do in here. So this is super powerful use case for Operations Hub. Then format data is also another great use case for Operations Hub. You can do things like make sure first name is always got the first letter capitalized and none of the rest. So if your system is full of all caps names, for example, and you're personalizing emails and you feel like you're yelling at people, format data would be a way to fix that. By the way, if after watching this video you think you need an upgrade, I highly encourage you to get a free consultation with SimpleStrat. We'll drop a link in the description. No charge for that, but we'll just help make sure that you're getting the right product and the best pricing available. Branches, so you can do if-then branches with logic or value equals. So does this property equal this, then send them to this branch. And you can also have somebody go to another action in another branch. This is grayed out for us since we don't have any if-then branches here, but we'll show you how to do that here in a second. Internal communications, this is going to be alerting people inside your company, so users in HubSpot of things. You can send them a simple email notification. It'll pop up in just a plain text builder here where you can just type in the email. Or you can send them an internal marketing email. So the emails you have saved in the marketing emails tool, you could send those to a HubSpot user. This is only available if you have the Marketing Pro or Enterprise. Then you also have the send an in-app notification. So if you want to alert somebody of something with a notification inside of HubSpot, this one is available to everybody. External communications is going to be communicating with the contacts in your system. So you can send them a marketing email. This is available only if you have Marketing Hub Pro or Enterprise. If you have sales enterprise, you can enroll them in a sales sequence or unenroll them from a sales sequence based on a trigger. Helps make sequences super powerful, but it does require that sales enterprise license. And then send a WhatsApp message if you do have that WhatsApp integration set up. We won't walk through that today, but that's a nice integration to have if you are using WhatsApp for your company. Assignment is going to be available if you have Sales or Service Hub, and this allows you to automatically rotate records. So if you want to set the owner of contacts, you want to rotate that across the team, you can do that if you have Sales or Service Hub Pro or Enterprise. Record management, so if you want to create a new record, so this could be used for creating a new company or creating a new deal, etc., or a new contact. You could create a task, or you could delete the contact that's in this workflow. This is a great way to kind of keep your system clean. If you know you got a spam form submission on your contact form, for example, and you can tell that based on a property condition, you could just have them come in here and get deleted out. List management. So this list management is only available if you have Marketing Pro or Enterprise, and it allows you to add a contact or remove them from a static list. Ads management is also only available with that Marketing Hub. This is a great tool if you're using the ads integration for Google Ads, LinkedIn Ads, Facebook Ads, and you want custom audiences for things like retargeting. You can use workflows to add them or remove them from that custom audience for those ad groups. And then property management is going to be available for anybody with a pro level subscription or higher. So you can set a property value. So say I want this contact's property value to equal this, or I want a record that's associated with this contact. So an associated company, an associated deal, I want it set to a certain value. I can copy a property value, so I can copy it from the record that's enrolled in the workflow to another property on that record or to a property on an associated record. So this is great if you want to copy properties back and forth between contacts and their associated companies, etc. I can copy a company property value. I can clear a property value, increase or decrease a property value if it's based on a number, or if it's a contact, I can manage their email subscription status. There are some limitations to these based on which HubSpot products that you have. So you can only update quote properties if you have a Sales Enterprise subscription, and you can only update ticket properties if you have a Service Hub Pro or Enterprise subscription. So those would be the limitations here. And then everything else here is going to be custom actions based on the integrations that you have set up. So certain tools, when you integrate, for example, if you integrate with Sakai for SMS or Google Sheets, they will give you different workflow actions depending on the options available in that integration. So going back to our example today, we are going to send an email as soon as somebody submits this form in a landing page. So we'll hit send email, and what's in this dropdown is all of the emails we've created in the marketing emails tool, and we've set as the type of automation. So we will find the first email we want to send here. Let's say this ebook follow-up with download. So this is going to be the email that delivers the ebook they requested on this landing page, for example. So we'll hit save. We want to send that to everybody. We want to send that right away. So we don't have any delays or any other actions in between here. Then let's say if somebody is a current customer, or we've got a deal open with them, then this is the only email we want them to get. So we're going to set up an if-then branch. We're going to base it on contact properties. And so we've got this first branch, contact property. We want to know if their life cycle stage is any of opportunity, customer, evangelist. You may have other lifecycle stages that you've added to your system. For example, we've added former customer into ours. So this way, if anybody has a current deal open, so for us that means opportunity. If they're already a customer, they're a customer referring business our way, or if they are a former customer, then we want them to do one thing. Everybody else, we want them to do somebody else. So I'm going to say opportunity or customer, give our branch a name, makes it easier to kind of tell what's going on when you're visualizing the workflow. So we're going to apply this filter. And then everybody else is, we're just saying not a customer. So if none of the criteria met, we're going to go to that branch. So we're going to hit save. And now it's created this if-then branch. everybody that's an opportunity or customer, or these other ones that I mentioned here, are going to go into this branch, and everybody that's not is going to go to this branch. So if they're not a customer, we're going to send them some nurturing emails to try to get them to take another action with us. So we're going to, first thing we're going to do is add a delay here, because we don't want that email that had the ebook to download and the next nurturing email to go out at the same time. So we want to delay for a set amount of time, and we'll delay it for 1 day. So we'll add our delay, and then we will add our email. So this is going to be an external communication. We'll send them an email, and we'll send them this nurture 1. Hit save, and we'll do that a couple more times. So maybe we want that delay to increase a bit. So the next one might delay 3 days. Send another nurture email. And you can do that as much as you would like. So I mentioned I would show you that go to another action. So if, let's say for some reason you wanted, even if they were a current customer, you still wanted them to get this second nurture email and every action after that, then what you could do is you could go in here and click on this go to other action, and we want it to go to this action. Maybe we want it to respect the delay here. So hit done. So this is a great way to make it so you don't have to copy workflow actions from one branch to the next. You can just send them to that other branch. So that's how you build out your workflow. As soon as somebody gets to something that says end, they'll be done. But remember, in this workflow, we're trying to get them to take a specific action. So one way to make sure that they don't keep getting your emails or don't keep going through your workflow steps after they've accomplished the goal of the workflow is to set a goal of the workflow. And this is something that, again, gets overlooked all the time. I see all kinds of if-then branches and workflows when we open them up for clients. This is a great way to kind of skip that, so we don't have to check before sending every email whether or not they've taken the action that we want. So we're going to set the goal. And let's say in this case, what we're trying to get them to do is submit a form. So we'll do any form, and we're going to pick the page. We're going to pick this free consultation landing page. So let's say this whole time we're trying to get them to book a free consultation. Again, we're going to leave this open. So anytime they've filled out a form on that free consultation, it's going to say that they completed the goal of this workflow. It's going to remove them from the workflow as soon as they do that, so they don't keep going through those additional steps. We're going to apply a filter there and save. So that's all there is to it for building out a workflow. There's a couple settings and things I want to walk you through here. So you'll notice these tabs across the top. Alerts is gonna flag you if there's something in the workflow that HubSpot realizes is gonna cause some problems. It's gonna flag an alert for you. Details, it's gonna show you your analytics for the workflow. So this is a great place to come in and see how the workflow is operating once you've got it turned on. Viewer edit goals, we already talked about that. Actions is where we build out our workflow. Settings, so there's a lot of powerful settings in here, so definitely make sure that anytime you're building a workflow, you come in here and make sure these are all set up the way you want them to. So you can restrict the times that you want them to execute. So let's say you only want them to execute on Monday through Friday between 9 and 5. You can set that up. You can also have them pause on certain dates. So you might want to come in here and add holidays that are relevant. So maybe you don't want emails going out on Christmas, for example. You can come in here and add specific dates. You can also associate it with a HubSpot campaign. Unenrollment and suppression. So you can say if they no longer meet the conditions of that initial trigger, we want to remove them. We can say if they enroll in this workflow, we remove them from other workflows or not. If we merge contacts and the new contact that's created meets the conditions, do we want them to go through this workflow? Usually you want that to be no, because oftentimes one of the contacts you merged have already done it. And then you can also have suppression lists. So if there's a list of contacts that you never want to enter in this workflow, you can create a list, add them to that list, and then add it here as a suppression list. You can also set up some notifications for making sure that your workflow is working the way that you expect it to. So the way that HubSpot does that is if there's a drastic increase in the number of enrollments in this workflow or a drastic decrease in the number of enrollments in this workflow, you can set what the percentage is here. You can have it notify internal users on your team. So if suddenly nobody's going through the workflow, you might want to get notified, for example, that that's happening. Goals, we already talked about goals. So once you've got that goal set, you can see some metrics about that goal here. It's a little bit similar to that details tab, but slightly different. It's just focused on goals. And you've got a nice little change log here, so you can see what users are making changes to the workflow and what changes they've made. You can also test your workflow. So this is kind of nice. What test is going to do is it's going to show you, you can select a contact in your system, and it's going to show you which steps that contact would have hit. It's not going to actually trigger those steps, so it won't actually send emails to the contact, etc., but it will just show you which steps in the workflow that contact would have hit. And if you want to see what the emails would have looked like for that contact, you can have HubSpot send you the emails, and it'll send it all at once. So even if you've got delay of multiple days, it'll just send you, let's say the contact would have gotten 4 emails, it'll send you all 4 emails right at once, so you don't have to wait to test it out. That's how the test works. And you've got a couple options and more, so you can clone the workflow, edit the name and description, export it, delete it, etc. Once you're done with your workflow, the next thing you're going to do, and kind of the last step, is to hit this review and publish button. So again, make sure that you read through all of this and verify, because workflow mistakes can be big mistakes. You can send emails to a lot of people you don't want to send. You can kind of mess up a lot of properties in your system depending on what your workflow is doing. So definitely spend a couple minutes on this screen making sure that all of these settings are set up the way that you want to. So the first thing it's going to say is, hey, there's already some contacts in your system that meet this trigger. They've already filled out that form on the landing page in this example. Do you want them to go through this workflow right now? Or do you only want people to go through this workflow after they do this from today on? So you can say no, only enroll contacts who meet the workflow after, or yes, enroll all of these existing contacts. So this is, and HubSpot will make you pick an option here before you can turn it on. So it's going to depend greatly on what your workflow is doing. In this case, we only want the people that fill out the landing page in the future, because maybe they filled it out a year ago. It'd be kind of weird to get an email now about it. Contacts enroll automatically when, so this is going to be just kind of a reminder of that trigger that you had set up on the workflow. I told you those re-enrollment settings are important. It's going to remind you of those, and it's going to kind of show you the connections. So the different, so in this case, there are 3 different emails in the workflow, 1 property we're looking at, and that if-then statement. So it's going to kind of show you what the workflow is referencing and the tools there. There's unenrollment settings that we talked about, there's timing settings that we talked about, and there's notification settings we're talking about. So it's a good recap of everything that you set up in the workflow. Once you're ready, you're just going to hit turn on. And if you did select that option to enroll all the contacts that already meet your trigger criteria, it may take a few minutes depending on how many contacts there were. It may take some time to get all of those contacts through there. So you might have to wait a bit to notice that all of those contacts have gone through there. Once your workflow is turned on, you can at any time go back to that workflows tool, open that workflow, hit details, and again, see those metrics of how that workflow is performing. So hopefully that helps you get your hands around the workflows tool a little bit easier. Like I said, it can be a little intimidating when you're first getting started, but I really encourage you, play with it. Think of some use cases that you can automate for your team, and within a couple months, I guarantee you'll have lots of workflows and lots of time saved. So that's all there is for today's video. For more HubSpot tips, tricks, and how-tos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and jump down to the description below to sign up for the email newsletter as well. See you next time.